Yo, Levi, the passion guy. Question for you to think about. Have you ever wondered why out of the 10 commandments, only 4 speak about how you relate to God, while 6 speak about how you relate to your neighbor? Or maybe you've wondered why Jesus would make a statement like this. He said, all the law and the prophets hang on this one statement: love your neighbor as yourself. And Paul, using the same kind of language, repeats this idea when he says, all the law is fulfilled in this one statement: love your neighbor as yourself. See, think about this. Your neighbor, no matter where he's from or what he looks like, and by the way, your neighbor also includes your enemy based off of Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan, but your neighbor is made in the image of God. Therefore, your neighbor is a visible representation of the invisible God. So how much you do or do not love your neighbor is directly connected to how much you do or do not love God. That's why 1 John says, you cannot claim to love God whom you've never seen and yet hate your brother who you have seen. And that's why Jesus can say in Matthew chapter 25, he says this, he says, whatever you've done to the least of these, if you fed them when they were hungry, or given them something to drink when they were thirsty, or clothed them when they were naked, or visited them in prison, whatever you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. See, how much you do or do not love your neighbor is directly connected to how much you do or do not love God. How much you love your neighbor or do not love your neighbor is the primary evidence of whether or not you actually love God. The way that you love God is by loving your neighbor. And loving your neighbor means fighting for their rights as you would fight for your own if you were in the position that they are in. So if you want to love God, love your neighbor.